There we go. Thank you. Trying to beat my personal best of 87 recordings. All right. So here we go. If you don't get the sourcing dashboard, you can always get to the sourcing dashboard. Everybody, FYI, by going to sourcing events and then clicking on sourcing event home. So that's how you can get here. On the sourcing event homepage, you can see a sourcing event summary. It's going to show you some of the events that are in the system. So you can click on these little filters here. So it can show you the sourcing event by the owner, show you the sourcing event by the type of event. It can show you the sourcing event by supplier. Lots of different like filters here. And then I can choose to just see all events that I have access to, or if I want to narrow it down, I can just see my events. So I could see, how many sourcing events do I have that are requests for proposals? Oh, I've got 5. Okay. How many sourcing events do I have where the status is withdrawn, right? So it's a nice little graphical representation here to show you all that. These actually come with clickable links embedded in the graphs as well. So if you see this and you're like, oh, okay, I've got 2 events that are under evaluation. If you want to see those events, you can click on this here on the graph for it, and it'll take you to a search result page. And now I can see those 2 sourcing events that are currently under evaluation. And then I could click on the individual sourcing event to get into it. That's a handy little thing that you can use in this summary page. The right-hand side, let me get back to our sourcing dashboard here. You'll see there's an event search. There's some quick links you can use here. And then at the bottom, you're going to see key event dates. So if you have sourcing events that are about to open up or about to close, you're going to see them here so you can quickly work on the ones that are important, right? So if it's about to open or it's about to close, you can take a look at that and figure out which ones you need to work on before whatever is going to happen happens. So these also come with different ranges, so you can see the ones that have key dates that are coming up in the next 7 days or the previous 7 days. You can include draft or pending events or not. So those are just some options that you've got available to you. But to create a brand new sourcing event, you can do that in a couple of different ways. So I can go to quick links here and then click on create new event. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, you can scroll over sourcing here in the left-hand menu, scroll over sourcing events, and then click on create new event. So either way will work, but we'll go ahead and just click on create new event. And we're going to give our sourcing event a title. So I feel like we need to purchase some laptops today. So I'm going to make this a laptop purchase. Okay. And then for many of you, your work group will automatically populate for you. So if you're only tied to be an event creator at a specific campus, that campus will automatically default in for you. If you work at the chancellor's office, you may have, this come up as blank, and then you'll select it here. So if it's already filled in, great, you just click next. If it's not, then you can click in here and start typing it. So I can start typing East Bay and then select it. Or if I don't want to do that, I can always click on this little magnifying glass, and you're going to see this over and over again. I can expand this out. I can find East Bay, select it, and click Save Changes. So either way will work, just whatever you're a little bit more comfortable with. So Alyssa, if you don't have access to create new events, you may not have the proper role in the test environment. So we may need to get back to you on that one and assign that role if you don't have it yet.
I'm doing that now. I'll manage the chats.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's go ahead and click next. And next we're going to designate our event type. So again, I can click in here and just start typing it. So it's a proposal, a request for proposal. So I can start typing that and select it. Or again, I can click on the magnifying glass, find it from the list or search for it and then select it. So again, either way works, whatever you're more comfortable with. All right, so once I have selected my event type, we don't have any templates in right now, but just FYI, as we start using this tool and we figure out what we want to put in our templates, we'll be able to build out templates for you. And what essentially templates do is they provide you with a starting point with content already built into the template. So, if you tell, if you tell us every time we create a request for proposal out of East Bay, we want to have these, two prerequisites, and we always want to ask these 8 questions, and we always want to have these 2 documents. We can build a template and it will automatically have the content in the system for you based on the template you've selected. But like I said, right now we don't have those, so we're just going to go ahead and click Create Sourcing Event. And it's going to take just a moment here. So I'm not sure who's in the chat as owner, but we might need to have your name. If you look at the chat and you see that your name is owner, you might want to go ahead and just tell us who your name is, or what your name is, not who your name is.
Or change your name so we know who you
Right.
are. Oh, Karina. Okay, because you showed up as Kiki in there too, so it must be in there twice. Thank you.
All right, so my sourcing event has been created. So as you can see, it's got my event title in here. It's a request for proposal, of course. I've selected my work group. We've got it. The system is going to automatically populate an event number for us. Below that, you can optionally provide a stage title. Now, not every sourcing event is going to require a multi-stage event, right? So if you're doing, if you're getting pricing in one stage and then later on you go and get best and final offer later, that's an example of a multi-stage event. If you're doing, if you're asking a bunch of questions first in a pre-qualification round and then later on you come back and you ask for item pricing, that's an example of a multi-stage event. But again, not every event is going to require that. So if you don't need it to be a multi-stage event, just leave this blank. Below that, you can decide if you need ad hoc approvals. So if you don't need ad hoc approvals, if you have the authority to just go ahead and submit this sourcing event and it sends out to the suppliers without anybody actually reviewing it before it sends out to the suppliers, then you can just say no here. I don't need ad hoc approvals. However, if you do want somebody to review it, you can say yes here, and then later on in the process, you can decide who you want to review your event. So I'm going to say yes here just so you can see it. And then if I said no, I'm going to show you where this wouldn't apply. Okay. Below that, later on, you'll be able to designate your commodity codes, but we'll go ahead and leave that all blank for now. Below that is the payment information. So you can give an estimated value for your sourcing event. Just keep note, it's not going to, the system is not going to tell the suppliers what the estimated value is. It's just for internal use purposes only. So, if you want to look back and report out how much money the university saved by running this sourcing event, it's nice to go ahead and put in the estimated value. That way we can run those reports later. Below that is the payment terms. So if you want to dictate or tell your suppliers that you plan on using net 30 for the award of this sourcing event, you can go ahead and select this. and that will tell the suppliers that you are going to pay them net 30, or you're going to, yeah, you're going to pay them net 30 rather. If you don't want to tell them, you can leave this blank, and you could ask that as a question in your sourcing event. You could say, well, what are your payment terms? And then maybe if they offer you favorable payment terms, that might be a reason to select one supplier over another. All right, so let's continue on. And actually, you know what? I'm not gonna select the payment term because I'm gonna ask them for their payment terms. Below that, we have some bid and evaluation options. So the first option here is whether you'd want to create this as a sealed bid. Does everyone know what a sealed bid is? And if not, go ahead and put in the chat if you don't feel comfortable with what a sealed bid is. Or you can even ask for a friend. Just say, you know, maybe somebody else doesn't. All right. Yep, I can definitely explain it. So sealed bid in the context of this system, what that means is if I say, yes, I want this to be a sealed bid, it means that you as the buyer are not going to be able to see the supplier's bids until after the sealed bid opening date. So this is nice because it protects against favoritism towards one supplier or another. So if you say, yeah, I want to seal it, you know, if you've added stakeholders to your event or something, they're not going to be able to go in there and, you know, tell ABC company, hey, this other company, they bid, you know, $99 per unit. Why don't you bid 98? And that way we can award it to you. So that's the idea
As a
behind a
public
sealed bid.
agency, we would, you know, we would almost always use it. I can't think of any circumstance. I don't want to make a definitive statement, but for a formal bid, we would almost always click yes for sealed bid, unless anybody knows any other reasons why we wouldn't. Sorry, Chris.
No, thank you for the support. Appreciate it. All right, underneath that we have whether or not you'd want to use panel questionnaires. So this is a yes or no. So the way panel questionnaires work in this system is if you say yes here, later on in the process, you'll be able to create a panel questionnaire. And in the panel questionnaire, you can invite panelists to come in and rate the suppliers. And you can use that rating to decide who you want to award the sourcing event to. So that's that usage there. Below that, we have auto scoring and cost analysis options available to you. So the way that this works is you can create questions in the sourcing event, and then based on the responses, you can say, okay, if they gave me a 5 to 10 year warranty, that's obviously better than a 1 year warranty. So you could reduce their cost, or you could give them a more positive score based on the way that the supplier answered the question. So the difference between panel questionnaire and this auto scoring and cost analysis is the panel questionnaire is more subjective, whereas auto scoring and cost analysis, you set up those questions beforehand and you tell the system, okay, before I even get any supplier responses in, if they answer this question this certain way, then I'm going to give them, you know, a positive score, or I'm going to reduce their cost. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a little bit. Below that, you can decide whether or not you want to utilize alternate items or not. So some people call these substitutes. So if you're looking for a 20-inch Dell monitor, but your supplier only has, or one of your suppliers only has a 20-inch HP monitor, would you allow them to put in an item that's like what you're asking for, but not exactly what you're asking for? So that's a yes or no. Split item quantity and evaluations. This allows you to split up the award of a single line item to multiple suppliers. So good example of this, pretty close to home, is PPE, right? So a lot of people were buying PPE and not a lot of suppliers had a lot of PPE left over to sell to everybody. So maybe if you're looking for, you know, 10,000 masks, you know, a supplier might be able to provide you with 2,000 masks, but maybe not all 10,000, right? So you might have to split up that one line item amongst multiple suppliers. So this is the option to allow that or not. And then finally, enforcing minimum and maximum pricing. what this allows you to do is set a minimum or maximum pricing. And what this can be helpful for, helpful in, is if you have suppliers who accidentally bid on the wrong unit of measure. So say you're looking for a yard of cable and they bid out a mile of cable, all of a sudden their bid is going to be ridiculously high. And if you want to prevent that, you can put kind of ridiculously high maximums and ridiculously low minimums, just so that if somebody puts in a bid that's obviously incorrect and probably for the wrong unit of measure, the system will give them a warning or give them an error message letting them know that their pricing is kind of out of whack. So you can enable that, and then you'd give maximum and minimum pricing on each line item, but we'll go ahead and skip that for now. It's not used very often.
Hi,
Below
Chris.
that, yep,
Hi, can we go back up to the sealed bid?
sure.
So in a traditional world, a sealed bid, the bids would come in hard copy and they would be sealed, right?
Yep.
It's the presumption that the bids will be sent electronically via this system, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So how do you seal an electronic bid versus clicking no sealed bid?
Yeah, so the way it works is we don't give you access to their bids. So the buyers, and in fact, nobody in the system will be able to actually get in and see the supplier's bids. They're in the system, you just won't have access to them until after the sealed bid opening date.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Cool. That's a nice feature.
Yeah, and a lot of times we'll even have clients that will set up a sealed bid opening date. Like they'll have a conference room open and they'll have a
Yep.
laptop open and they'll have
Yeah,
people
we do
come
that for
in.
Public Works. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of opening envelopes, you'll have the system open and you can show them, look, I can't see your bid. And then, 2 o'clock will roll over, you'll refresh and you'll say, okay, look, I can see your bids now.
Okay, so when the event ends, that's when the sealed gets released.
It can. So you can have the sealed bid opening date be the same date as your close date, or you can have it be a different date.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I can say, my close date, let's just say, is the 30th, but my sealed bid opening date is actually going to be on, let's just say, November 3rd. And you can set a time too. You can say it's going to be at 1 p.m. So you can invite all your suppliers to come to your offices at 1 p.m. to see the sealed bid opening date.
Or you could probably even technically do it by Zoom. I mean, they could
Yeah.
set the Zoom at like 2 o'clock and have the sealed bid open at 2:05. That way, when everybody gets on at 2 o'clock, they can see it's still locked, and then at 2:05, it opens up, and you could show them all on a Zoom.
Oh yeah, we would totally do it by Zoom. We just did it for one of our Public Works opening. We did for the first time ever. CSUN had their Zoom bid opening.
Yeah, so you might want to make it 5-10 minutes after the start of the meeting just to prove that it wasn't open.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All
Now,
right.
Chris, while we're on the subject of pricing, what we typically like is to have the technical one pricing and the cost in another proposal, because when we send these out for evaluation, the committee isn't allowed to see the pricing, right, until they do their technical. So there's a way to separate that, right?
Yeah, so you can hide event prices. That's an option. So you can make it to where only certain people are able to see the pricing, even after the sealed bid opening date.
Okay, got it. So we can use that feature versus asking for two separate proposals, like on a thumb drive or something.
You could.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, thanks.
Sure, you're welcome. All right, so I think I was right here under display and communication. So you can decide whether you want this to show up on the public bidding site or not. So it's a yes or a no. So we're going to say yes. Okay. And then below that, we have our dates and times. So You're only going to see these dates and times for sealed bids if you say yes, it's a sealed bid, obviously. If you say no here, these dates for sealed bids are going to go away. So it's going to default to have Pacific Standard Time as your time zone. And then the opening date is the date when your suppliers will be able to go in and start bidding on the event. And then your close date is when the event is going to close down and when your suppliers can no longer submit bids. So like I said, you can choose to have your sealed bid opening date be the same as the close date, or you can specify a separate date for that. And we've got a question about where the public site is, so I'll show you that in just a moment. And then below that, you can also have a Q&A submission close date. So what some clients tell me is, you know, we have suppliers asking me questions 5 minutes before the event closes, and that causes issues. So what you can do is you can choose to close down the Q&A submission date a few days before the event closes, so you're not running into that problem. So I can say, no, you know what, I'm going to close down the Q&A board on maybe the 28th. Or you can just check this box to make it the same as the close date. All right, so clicking Save Progress is going to save all the information and keep me on the same page. Clicking Next is going to save all the information on this page and take me to the next page of the wizard here. So
Chris?
actually, yep.
Do you guys have the capability of reverse auctions in
We
this
do.
module?
Yeah, we sure do.
Okay, because what reminded me when we had the bid closing on our reverse auctions, obviously if someone puts a bid in the last 2 minutes, the auction keeps open. So I was just wondering if you guys have that feature. I don't know if in this module or if that's, David, if that's something we...
No, it's something we're
included
looking
in
at.
this?
We're just, we haven't started it yet. We just, in one of our meetings the other day, we talked about when we wanted to do it. We're trying to close the loop on some of the stuff that we've got going now. We're going to pick up reverse auctions within the next couple weeks.
Oh, okay, good. It's good.
Yeah.
It'll be good to have it all in one place.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Great.
Yep. All right, so yep. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. So next we have the users that are associated with the sourcing event. So as the creator of the sourcing event, you're automatically an owner. So owners of the sourcing event have full control over the event. So they're able to edit the content. They can edit, you know, the description, the prerequisites, the attachments, everything, right? They can make amendments to an already open sourcing event, all that good stuff. Stakeholders, on the other hand, have access to view the event and the supplier responses, but they don't have access to go in and make edits, right? So they can't go in and you know, add content for you. So that's the difference between a stakeholder and an event owner. Now, if you're working with another campus on a sourcing event and you do want to allow them to go in and help you build out the sourcing event, you can click on Edit Users here and you can search for them and select them, click Save Changes, and now I've added Jacqueline as another event owner. So now Jacqueline can go in there and help me build out my sourcing event. So it's a nice way to work with, you know, if you're working on a multi-campus agreement, you can add event owners from other campuses. And then below that we have notification recipients. So what will happen here is only certain users will be notified about things that happen in the sourcing event. So by default, it's going to default back to just the person who created it. But if I wanted other people to also be notified about things that happen in this event, I can edit this and I can add other folks here as well. Okay, so I'm going to click Next. On this next page, you're going to add a description for your sourcing event. So you can just type in this description here. Your description can come from a template. So if we build out templates for you, we can have the description automatically populate in here for you. Or you can also copy in descriptions from your library. So if I click on Copy from Library here, I can click on the drop-down box and we can have multiple libraries. So we could have an IT library, a construction library, an MRO library, a consulting library. And we can even have libraries by campus. So I can have an East Bay library, I can have a a Sonoma library. I could have a chancellor's office library of content that I can choose from. But in the test environment, I've just got this sample event library, and I can select this description I have here. So as you can see, it populates in here for me. And if this is a multi-stage event, I can actually give the stage a description as well. So if this was maybe a best and final offer stage to the sourcing event, I could describe what it meant to be a best and final offer. But again, we're not doing a multi-stage event here, so I'm just going to click next to continue on. And here I can go ahead and add my prerequisites. So prerequisites are essentially a way for you to put in a gating mechanism, or a way for you to stop suppliers from proceeding on and submitting their bid unless they accept the language that you put in these prerequisites. So to add a prerequisite, we're just going to click on Add Prerequisite, and then we're going to click on Add New Prerequisite. So we're going to give the supplier some instructions. Okay, so these instructions are not the actual prerequisite. This is just you telling them that they have to accept this prerequisite. And then below that, you can actually upload the prerequisite if you had it as an attachment, or you can type it in. So I'm going to go ahead and type it in. Click Edit here. I'll give my prerequisite a name, and then I'll type in the actual text of the prerequisite. Okay, so we're going to pretend that there was lots more text here, and I'm going to click Done. And then next, you're going to decide what type of prerequisite this is. So is this do you require this for them to even see the event, or do you require them to accept this to enter their bid? Nobody ever uses optional, so you can just ignore that one. And then public procurement organizations almost always have to show the event to everybody. So you probably won't ever be able to use this. So you'll probably only use required to enter bid. So what this is saying is, until they accept this prerequisite, I'm not going to allow them to submit their bid. Okay. And then you can also decide if you want to force them to upload a document to accept the prerequisite. So that's just this checkbox. And then you can even decide if you want to confirm it or not. So we'll just say no for now, and we'll click Save Changes. If we have prerequisites built into the template that you're using, they would just already be here. And then if we have a prerequisite library, you'll be able to click Add from Library. You can select the library, and then you can select the prerequisite that you want to add. So as you can see, it's a lot easier when we have them built out into the library for you, because I just had to select that. I didn't have to type it all out. So if you guys would, obviously provide us with any prerequisites you'd want to put in the library, and we'll put those in the library for you. Okay, so we'll continue on. And under buyer attachments, these are just any attachments that you would like to provide to your suppliers. So this is a buyer provided attachment that will be provided to the suppliers. So again, I can click Add Attachments, and if I have something from the library, I can click Add from Library, select the library, pick the attachments I want, click Add Selected Attachments. Pretty easy. If I want to add my own attachment that's not from the library, just click Add Attachments, Add New Attachment, and then I'm going to upload the document here, and yeah, and then I can proceed on. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so I have attached a sitemap, and you can give it a comment if you want to. And again, if your template came with attachments, they would already be here. I wouldn't have even had to add them manually or from the library. Okay, so let's continue on. Supplier attachments, this just tells you that the suppliers are going to be able to upload as many attachments as they want. So we can skip past this. It just lets you know. All right, next we're on to questions. So the questions section, this is where we're able to ask the suppliers to answer questions. So from here, I can click on Add Question. And again, I can add questions from the library. I can select the library. I can select the question and click Add Selected Questions. And I can even give my groups of questions names. So I can go to edit, manage group here and edit the group. And I can call this group of questions general info maybe. And I can not only add questions from the library, but I can add brand new questions as well. Okay, and then I can give them a response type. So if I pick one of these defined answer type of questions, then I can actually use my auto scoring and cost analysis. So I'm going to say the supplier has to respond to me. And I'm going to say, I'm going to use auto scoring and cost analysis, and I'm going to give them the possible answers that they can choose from. Okay, and I can go back into these and I can say, okay, well, if they said net 10, that's not great. If they say net 30, I'll give them a score of 5. And if they said net 60, I'll give them a score of 10. And if they did 2% net 30, that's great. I'm going to give them a score of 15, and I'm going to reduce their cost by 1%. Okay. So you can do that for whatever you want, right? So if they give you a better warranty or they provide, whatever it is that would reduce their cost or give them a better score, this is how you can set that up, or one way that you can set that up. Okay. So we can ask as many questions as we want here, but I'm going to keep this short just for the sake of time and continue on. So in the additional item fields, this feature is not used very often, but you can ask questions about individual line items, right? So this question section here is really more for you to ask about the overall sourcing event and not really to ask about individual line items. But you can go into additional item fields here, and here you can create additional item fields. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I'll call this one country of origin. And maybe we'll just relate it to product line items. And we'll say that the suppliers can respond, but it's not required. And we'll just make it a free text box and save changes. So I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. The next one we have are pricing components here. Again, not used as often as some of the other content, but you can also, looks like, is there a way to add questions from Excel or Word? Or do we have to type each question in the tool? You do not have to type each question in the tool. What you can do is, I would start by adding 1 or 2 questions in the tool, and then you can export out the questions. Okay. And then once you're done, once you've done your little export here, just refresh this and you can open up this Excel spreadsheet. And this will allow you to fill out all the questions you want in this Excel spreadsheet and import that back into the tool. So here are the 2 questions that came with that I've already put in. So to add another one, I can just go in here and say, okay, add another question. Oops, maybe if I enable it for editing, that would help. I can add a question. decide if it's required or not. If it's, I can make it conditional if I wanted to, put in the response type. And then when I'm done, I can go ahead and save this. Yeah, and then I'll go back into my our questions here, and I can import that in. But just keep note here, if you import questions in, it's going to replace everything that's here with what's in your import spreadsheet. So just keep that in mind. Very, very important. That's why I exported what was here, because I didn't want to lose it. So if you export the questions that are already here and then just add on, when it does the import, it's going to replace it. But since I already had these questions in my export, they're still going to be there because, you know, they were in the document. So I'll go ahead and import those back in. And we'll go ahead and select our file here. And submit. And it's going to take just a moment here. There it is. So now if I go back into questions, look at that, 3 questions. So we could do it for, you know, 2 or 50 or 100 questions if you needed to. Yep. So I would just, you know, try it out first because it can be a little tricky. You do have to use the specific template. Either you got to download the template here, or you can just, the easiest way to do it is just add a couple manually and then export it out. All right, so if we go on to items, it's the same thing. So you also have the ability to export the items and import them back in. So if you're asking for like 100 line items or 500 line items, a lot of times that can be difficult to add them one by one. So you can do that through the import as well. But I'm going to go ahead and just add a couple of line items here. Okay, and you'll want to make sure and require item pricing for at least one line item. So make sure that you set these up correctly. You can specify a requested delivery date too. So you can say, I need these delivered by the 31st, or you can say, I need you to deliver them 10 days after I award it to you. So either one works. You can require an estimated delivery date from the supplier. So this is you telling them this is when you want it, and this is them, you know, telling you when they say they can deliver it. Yep, and then so we'll go ahead and save changes there, and I'm going to add one more line item really quickly. All right, and so I've got my 2 line items, and I'll go ahead and click next. So next I can go ahead and search for suppliers to invite to my sourcing event. So I'm going to find a couple of suppliers here. All right, there's one.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're searching for suppliers, are we able to put in a list of suppliers separated by a comma and then they'll all populate?
No, you can't put in a list, a comma separated list. You got to search for them one by one.
Okay, search for one by one. Okay.
Yeah.
Does this have the ability to search by like category code, or I'm not sure how they set themselves up in your system, but I know for one of our other systems they have certain I don't want to call them commodity codes, but kind of descriptions of what they do as a business. are we able to perhaps filter by that, and then we could grab them all in from there and obviously add them one by one?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to that. One, yes, so you can search by commodity code, and you can find all the suppliers that match the commodity code and invite them, click them all off and add them. Two, there's an option that we've hidden for now, but you can force supplier invitation by commodity code. So if you don't even want to look at it, you can just say yes to this. And then any supplier that registered with the commodity code that you listed here would automatically be invited to participate in this sourcing event.
That's exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah, the issue with that, Deborah, is we're not taking registrations from suppliers yet, so we don't have the commodity codes for the suppliers. That's a phase 3 thing that when we have a total supplier management module up and we're doing, having the suppliers manage their registration, they'll be able to manage the registration under the commodity codes that they're available for. Right now, we're just doing manual ads without that. We don't have that yet. It's coming within the next year, I'd say.
Okay, that's good to know. So the 700 suppliers that are in here already, we're not assigning commodity codes to them. We just basically entered their name, company information, and contact.
Yeah, some of them may have so what we've done is we've looked at suppliers that are already in the Jagger network, and where some of those suppliers already existed and they had supplier commodity codes already entered and other contact. We've imported those, so some of that may be, legacy from what we've imported from other Jagger clients that have created a supplier. Anything that didn't show up, we've created our own supplier from scratch. It was just a lot easier to pick a supplier if it already existed in the Jagger network, if it was a supplier that we're already using. So it may or may not be correct too. So it could be what other people have put in. But once we have TSM live and active and suppliers are managing their own registration, it's on them to be accurate.
So if we basically want to look at all the Jagger vendors, not just the ones particular to the CSU, we could click that button and that will pull in all of the Jagger suppliers that have registered with a commodity code.
I don't think you can see them.
No, and they wouldn't have registered with your commodity code.
Right.
So is it the in-network versus non-in-network suppliers available? Is it just in-network supply? Like from the contracts module, we had the in-network versus the out-of-network, I guess, or the Jagger system ones.
Mm-hmm.
So is it just our in-network suppliers that will get pinged that we put out a bid?
So first and foremost, it's only the suppliers that you add for now, right? Okay. So you're going to have to add the suppliers. So only they are going to get pinged for now. In the future, like a year from now, if you want to use that force invitation by commodity code, only your suppliers would still get that, because only your suppliers will register with your commodity code.
But how do we get the other Jagger vendors invited to our bid, even though if they're out of our network? Because we may be looking for some new blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you can definitely search for them here, and you can search for them by commodity or by NACE code too. So if you know the NACE code that's related to what you're buying, you can search either by their name or by NACE code to find Jagger network suppliers that might be able to fill the need for you.
Okay, so yes, as long as we have that NACE code access, that would work, because we don't know who the suppliers will be outside of our network.
Right.
Okay, so if we did that right now, will they show up, David or Chris?
Yeah, they'll show up.
Okay, so we're not subject to just in-network. If we hit this NACE code, all of your out-of-network suppliers will show up and we can invite to this bid.
Correct, yeah.
They do, so suppliers that we haven't added to our network?
Yeah, you'd have to add a contact for them and everything like that, but yeah, they will show up.
Okay.
It's better though if you can find, I would always search in network first, because there can be like 20, 30 different IBMs and they might not be the right IBM for CSU. So always try to search in-network first.
And in-network means, for our purposes, it's in the CSU's network, not the
Right.
Jagger network. It's our suppliers.
Yeah, I guess there's pros and cons of that, because if you can imagine, if we use the Jagger network of suppliers as well, I can't even imagine the number of bids that would come back. What an effort that would be to to down select.
I mean, there's additional things you can do, like we were doing with CalUsource, where you go to Fiscal and you post a link to our public bid site. So suppliers, you just put in the basic information, put in the link to the public bid site, and that will cast you a wider net. And that's the workaround we were doing for the last 2.5, 3 years with GEP, with CalUsource. But once we start having our suppliers know that we're using Jagger, and then they're, we send out an invite to the 50,000+ suppliers that we have to re-register. But this is all phase 3 stuff. It's likely a year away.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
All right, so let me go ahead and add one more supplier. David, you don't mind again, do you? Participating? No. I appreciate it. All right, so I got a couple of suppliers that are going to be participating in my event. So now I can go ahead and submit it for approval. Remember I said I did want to have ad hoc approvals. So if we go back into setup and I change that to say, no, I don't need any ad hoc approvals. When we go to review and submit and we open this up, there's no approvals here. So as soon as I click submit for approval, it's going to auto approve and open up. And whenever the opening date is, the system's going to automatically send out those invitations to the suppliers to go in and bid on the event. If I go back and change that and say, oh, you know what, actually I do need ad hoc approvals, what's going to happen then is if I go to review and submit, and I submit this for approval, it's going to first stop in this ad hoc setup step and allow me to set up all the ad hoc approvers I need. And then later, after I get all those ad hoc approvers, it'll come back to me and I can approve at the end when I'm ready. So let me show you what that looks like really quickly. I'll go ahead and just submit for approval. And I'll go back to my event. So if I do need somebody else in the organization to approve it, I can go to tools here and approvals, and I can say, okay, it's with me right now as the quote unquote approver, because I need to set up who the ad hoc approvers are going to be. So I can go to workflow actions and I can click on add ad hoc step, and I can find somebody. So maybe it's David Gee. Okay. And again, this is all optional, guys, so you don't have to do this if you don't need it. And I'll save it. And then when I'm ready, I'll approve it out of my event, and it's going to go right to David Gee, and he'll be able to approve it. So I'm going to approve it out of my step, and now it's with David Gee. I'm going to go ahead and just approve it myself just to make things move along, but you can see how you can add your own ad hoc approvers as you need it. And just as a reminder, these ad hoc approvers are really for approving the event before it opens up and actually invites the suppliers to bid on the event. Later on in the evaluation workflow, that's a separate workflow and it doesn't really have anything to do with these ad hoc steps here. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this. And I'll approve it in my step. All right, now the sourcing event approval is fully approved. So what's going to happen now, you'll notice the event status went from under evaluation to approved. And if I refresh the screen and wait a little bit, it's going to go from approved to open, because I actually put the opening date slightly in the past here. So the event's going to open up right away. So let me refresh my screen one more time here. And as you can see, the event is now open. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the email address of the supplier that I invited to this event, and we'll take a look at what they see. All right, so here's the email notification that the supplier received, as you can see here. So now as the supplier, I can click on this link to open up my sourcing event. And if the supplier had never registered before, they're going to have to go through a short supplier registration or user registration. If they have registered before, they'll just be able to put in their username and or their email address and password and get right into the system. So as you can see here, there is a summary page. It's got some information. It's got the description I put in about the sourcing event. So now I can start moving around in the event, but you'll notice if I go to questions, I can't actually answer the questions yet. I can't actually answer the item pricing yet. And that's because of two things. One, I haven't submitted my intent to bid. I haven't said, yeah, I intend on bidding on this event. So I'll start by doing that. But two, I have not accepted the prerequisites yet. So in order to proceed and actually go in there and put in my bid, I'll need to go back to the prerequisites and look at the prerequisites here and agree to them. I'm gonna look at this one and yeah, it looks good. All right, now that I have agreed to all the prerequisites, I can go in and start bidding on the event. So here's the buyer attachments. I could download those. Yep.
Chris, sorry, question. Going back to the previous page, can the suppliers, they can't just check on the box, right? They have to prove that they went ahead and read each one of those requirements before it allows them to check the box. And the reason why I'm asking is what we don't want to see is when the bids come in and now they're taking exceptions to insurance or terms and conditions, but they've checked it here, that's going to be a problem. So do you know if your system is triggered to where you have to physically, you know, click on this link to look at them and then you can check the box?
No, they can just check the box. Now, you can set up your prerequisite to require them to upload a document, and you can even review the document before you accept their acceptance of the prerequisite. So if you want to go that far, you could, you know, have them sign that they had read the
They're certifying here anyways. What I think what Deborah's asking is there's no way to force them to download them to show that there was an audit trail that shows they actually downloaded the document. It only is the attestation here by clicking on the box.
Correct.
Right.
It doesn't audit them downloading the document.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. Because in GEP, in CaluSource, that was one of the cool functions that it had is you could force them to download the document and it audited, it's left an audit trail that showed they downloaded it. And if they didn't download it, they could attest to it, but if they didn't download it, they couldn't proceed. And Jagger doesn't have that?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, we could still argue, well, you certified you read these, so
Yeah.
right? You can't now bring back
course.
things, now you're disqualified.
It's still an attestation there. It's on them.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay, just curious. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So, like I said, under buyer attachments, they can download the documents. Under supplier attachments, they can attach as many documents as they need to. And then if we click next, under questions, they can answer your questions. Click next. Okay, and then of course on the item pricing, they can provide you with item pricing. And then just like as the buyer, I can upload items and questions into the tool. Your suppliers can upload question responses and item pricing into the tool as well. So if you have a ton of questions you're having them answer or a ton of item pricing you're asking them to provide pricing on, they can also export out that content and then import it back in, the responses. All right, so we'll go ahead and give some unit pricing here. Okay, and they can click Save Progress, or they can click Next, either way. And actually, before I review and submit, I'm gonna go to the Q&A board, and from here, we can go ahead and ask a question. Okay, and they could post an attachment to go along with that if they wanted to, and they can submit their question whenever they're ready. So after my question has been submitted, your buyer can sign up for email notifications, letting them know whenever they have a question in the Q&A board, or if they're just in their sourcing event, they can go to Tools, Q&A board, and they'll see their questions here. So they can decide to just answer the question, they can decline to answer the question, or they could post a question like this if they wanted to. But we'll go ahead and just answer the question. And while we're answering the question, we can answer it with just text, or we can upload an attachment here as well. And then we can decide if we want to answer this question publicly or privately. So if we're answering it privately, only this particular supplier will receive the response. If we're answering it publicly, all the suppliers that have logged into the system will have access to view the question and also the answer. So they won't see the supplier or the supplier name who asked the question, but they will see the question text and they will see the answer. So it's important that, before you actually post a question publicly, you make sure that the question that they asked does not contain their name in it, right? So it's just something important to think about. All right, so we'll go ahead and post our answer. All right, so now as the supplier, if I refresh my page here, you can see that you've got your question here, and then I got my answer back. So I could post follow-up questions and we can go back and forth, but I think I'm good here, so we'll go ahead and review and submit. So I'm gonna certify that the statements and information are correct. If I had left anything out here, if I had missed answering required questions or didn't bid on required item pricing, it would tell me here what I had missed, but I'm good now, so I'm going to submit my response.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
If somebody does ask a question that has either their, question isn't understandable to others or includes their supplier name, can you edit that in any way before you post the answer, or can you possibly post your own public question and answer for everybody to see?
Yeah, absolutely. So you just post a question, and then you can do that. So yeah, there's just a couple of ways you can do it.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Chris, we also have some, typically what we do for our sourcing events is we have a deadline where they can all ask questions, and then we have a date to get back to all of the vendors with all of the questions with answers. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to export all of those questions? We would answer them and then import all the answers back into the platform for everyone to see at the same time?
A way to export out all the questions and then answer them all at once.
Because I can't see us answering each single one individually, because sometimes some of the questions have to be answered by our stakeholders. Purchasing would handle their part, and then we would send the stakeholder questions to them, and then they would answer them. And then we would, typically right now, we issue an addendum that has all of the questions and answers. How would we do that here?
So one thing you could do is give your stakeholders access to the event, and they could answer the questions themselves in the Q&A board.
A lot of times we get multiple.
I'm going to say that's probably not going to happen. I don't want to be negative, but I'm going to say that's probably not going to happen. So, how would we do this if we sent a response to all of the questions on our stakeholders' behalf.
Okay. Well, you could still do it the way you do it today. I mean, you could put together a spreadsheet and you could, make an amendment and post that as a spreadsheet in the supplier attachments or the buyer attachments
Okay.
rather.
Okay, so we still have that option, just like we're doing right now. We'll call it an addendum. Here's the questions that were asked, and here are the answers.
Right.
Okay.
You could do it that way.
Okay, because we typically have a lot of questions, so I can't see going in this way that you're doing it one by one. It'd be pretty labor intensive and probably time consuming. So I'm glad to hear that we still have the option just to post a document.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To go on that thought, is there a way to let the suppliers know that a new document has been posted so that they
Yeah.
know
So when you
to go-
do an amendment, it's going to notify the suppliers, and they'll be able to see in the tool what was changed. So they'll get an email letting them know that an amendment was made, and then when they go in the tool, there'll be like an icon at the top of the page letting them know that an amendment was made, and it'll tell them, an attachment was added, and it'll tell them the name of the attachment.
And can we have them certify that they received that addendum? Because typically when we have those, the bidders have to turn those in so that they know they're all responding to the RFP on an apples-to-apples basis, meaning they have to take all the questions into account. Is there a way for them to certify that attachment or that addendum that went out?
I guess you could add another prerequisite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as part of your addendum, you could add the attachment, and you could add another prerequisite asking them to certify that they've read it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, perfect. So we can add that kind of in the middle stream. We don't have to add those prereqs all the way in the beginning.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I mean, or we could add as a prereq that you'll certify to, that you'll recognize or acknowledge all addendum within this RFP.
Sure.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All righty. So let's see here. Where was I at? Here we go. All right, so let's take a look at our supplier responses. David, I hate to ask, would you mind responding real quick? If not, I can go ahead and invite another supplier of mine.
Oh, I was talking and you couldn't hear me.
Nope.
Here we go. Yes, I intend to bid. Next. Certify. Okay, items. All right. Oh, I got to certify. There we go. All right, done.
Sounds good. All right, so I'm going to refresh my screen. As we can see, we've got 2 bids in the system, but I can't actually go in and look at their bids yet. And that's because it's a sealed bid. Oh, I should share my screen. Yeah, so got 2 submitted bids, but that's all I know is that we've got 2 submitted bids. I can't actually go and see the bids yet. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of time, is I'm going to close my event early. And so now my sourcing event is closed, and as you can see, it's under evaluation. If we go to tools and we go to approvals, it's going to stop first at this buyer review step. And then if your campus has told us that you want a procurement review step, we can build in a procurement review step. We don't have any of those in production right now because we haven't found the need to have that. But the idea here is if you had somebody at the campus that should be reviewing all the awards that the buyers select before they're finalized, we could have a procurement review step here. So if Jennifer said, you know, everything coming out of Sonoma, I have to look at before, you know, we can set in stone that award, that's something we could do, right? We could say any sourcing event coming out of the Sonoma work group would go to Jennifer, for instance. But if you don't need that, we can always skip these steps for all of the universities that don't need this step. But it is always going to go to a buyer review step. So it's the buyer's responsibility to select who's going to be awarded the sourcing event. Even if they're not the one making the decision, they're going to be in the tool actually selecting that in the tool. So that's why we're the first step here. Before I actually go into evaluate, I'm going to run the panel questionnaire. So you're not going to run a panel questionnaire with every single sourcing event, but you will with some of them. So I'm going to show you how that's done. So remember, when I set up this event, I said, yes, I do want to use panel questionnaire. So that's why I have this option here under panel questionnaire. So I'll pull that open and I'll go to setup. And on the setup page, I can decide if I want to run this panel questionnaire by points or percentages. So I'm going to choose points, and I'm going to say the total maximum point value that any one supplier could get would be 200 points. And then you can choose a questionnaire close date. So I can choose what date I want to stop people from submitting their questionnaires afterwards. And you can always close this early if you need to. And then you can choose if you want to anonymize supplier information, and also if you want to only have a single supplier response per page. So anonymizing supplier information is nice if you want to prevent favoritism towards one supplier or another. But if you're using this option to anonymize supplier information later on in the process, you'll need to make sure and only put in questions from the sourcing event. So you're not going to be able to ask suppliers to rate or ask your panelists to rate suppliers based on their previous experience because they're not even going to get to see their name. You'll have to just ask them to rate the suppliers based on the way that they answered the questions in the sourcing event. So we'll leave those off for now, and we'll give a rating scale. So you can do, you know, a 1 to 2, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, but I wouldn't go any further past 1 to 10. Doesn't work as well after that. So we'll just go 1 is poor, 2 is average, 3 is good, 4 is great. So you give the ratings, you give the description of each rating. You can be as descriptive or not as you want to. So we'll go ahead and click next. I'm actually going to get back to panelists in just a moment, so I'm going to skip over this for now and we'll come back to it. For now, we're going to go into the panel questions in the panel questionnaire. So you can have 1 page of questions, you can have 3, 5, however many as you need. So if you just have a couple of questions, you really just need 1 page. But if you have like 50 different criteria or 100 different criteria or questions that you're rating this supplier based on, then you're probably going to need more than 1 page just to break things up and make it a little bit more manageable. But just for this small example, I'm just going to have 1 page. And now we can add our questions. So like I was saying earlier, if you had chosen to anonymize the supplier names, then your only choice to add questions is going to be add questions from the event. Okay, so I'm going to choose maybe all 3 of these. Click Save Changes. And again, for the groups, you can just leave it named Group 1, or I can edit this group name, and we'll call it Operations Questions. Okay, so you can also have multiple groups. So you can have multiple pages, you can have multiple groups within a page, or you could just have one group and one page. It's up to you as to how you want to break these all up. For this example, I'm going to have 2 groups. So I'm going to add a new group, and we'll call the second group AP Questions, or AP Info. And in this group, I'm actually not going to add questions from the event. I'm just going to ask them to rate the supplier based on their previous experiences with the supplier. So I'll go ahead and just click Add New Question. Okay. So I'll go ahead and add one more. Okay, so you can add, again, as many of these as you need to. And we'll click Next. Okay, so when you're assigning weight to the different questions, all of the pages have to equal up to your total points or percentages. So I'm lucky, I just have 1 page, so it just has to equal to 200. All of your groups within a single page have to equal up to the page total. So I can say, well, maybe this group is worth 130 points, and maybe this one's worth 70 points. All right, now all of the questions within a single group have to equal up to the group points here. So I'm going to say this one's only worth 10, this one is worth, I don't know, let's just say 60, and maybe this one's worth 60. Okay, and then of these, this one might be worth 50, and this one's worth 20. So you can assign the weight of each question. So obviously, you know, the answer to this question is worth, you know, 6 times as much as this one. All right, so we'll click Next. And we'll designate which suppliers we're actually going to be rating here. Oh, 1 second. Oh, forgot to, sorry about that, everybody. I forgot to close my event. So let me go ahead and close it. And we'll take a look at that in just a minute. Ah, hold on. That's better. All right, so let me go back to suppliers here, and I'll add my suppliers. And if I go to panelists, add my panelists. And when I'm adding my panelists, just FYI, if you want to, you can assign them to specific groups. So if I had like 3 panelists here, I can say, well, this person works in accounts payable. So I'm only going to assign them to rate the accounts payable questions, right? Or you might have somebody who's in operations. You might say, well, you only need to rate the operations questions. We're not going to take your opinion into account for the AP questions because there's no reason to do that. So you can have your panelists rate all the questions by default, which is what's going to happen, or you can assign them to only rate certain groups of questions. So that's an option for you. But I'm going to go ahead and review and publish my, one second, let me reset my date here. And I'll go ahead and publish my questionnaire. And your panelists are going to, can everyone still hear me? It's really quiet.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Used to a few more questions here. Okay, so now my panelists are going to get an email letting me know that that I need to go in and rate the questionnaire. So they can click on a link in the email to get into the tool, or if they're already looking at the event, they can click on My Responses here, and they can go ahead and view the questionnaire. If there is just a ton of things for them to rate, they can import and export the stuff. So that is an option. But we'll go ahead and just view the questionnaire and rate them one by one. So we'll go ahead and see, okay, here's a question where we asked the question of the supplier. So we see the question that was asked to the suppliers, and we see the response that the supplier gave. So remember, this is the one that you can use even if you anonymize suppliers. But here's an example of a question where we just came up with the question and it wasn't asked during the sourcing event. So really, you have to have experience with the supplier in order to be able to answer these, right? Probably. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start answering these. So great, 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 poor. We'll say average, great. And then we'll just start putting in some answers here. So your panelists do have the option to go ahead and give you a comment so they can tell you why they have rated this a certain way. All right, so once we're ready, we'll go ahead and save changes and we'll submit. All right, so now I have successfully submitted my panel questionnaire. So I can go ahead and close it early. If I'm the person managing the questionnaire, I can extend it if some people need extra time, or I could withdraw it if we decided not to use the panel questionnaire at all. But I'm going to go ahead and just close this one early. And now that I've got my panel questionnaire all created, I can use it in my analysis of the event. So if we go into supplier responses, I can go ahead and get into the supplier responses and take a look. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'll go into evaluation actions and evaluate all responses. And you'll see the event prices are hidden right now because I enabled that option, but I can go back into here and I can go ahead and show the event pricing. So now I can actually see it. So I had hidden event pricing from everybody, the stakeholders and everybody, but I just re-enabled it. I'm going to go ahead and evaluate it. And if I expand all, this is going to show me everything, right? So it shows me who got the better who got the better questionnaire rating, who got the better auto score, what pricing we put in. This is just the flat pricing, but here is also the adjusted pricing, right? So we see that this supplier's pricing was adjusted down a little bit because of the way they answered this particular question. We reduced their price by 1%. So we can use some of the standard scenario analysis by clicking on view scenario, and I can just select one. So I can say, system, I want you to automatically award it to the supplier who had the best questionnaire rating. So I can select that, and it's going to go back and pick one supplier to award who had the best questionnaire rating, right? So I can save that scenario.
Chris, I have a question. So
yes.
On the adjustment for the payment terms, even though they quoted $20,069, but their bid came in at 19,
Mm-hmm.
we award them 20,069, right? In other words, that adjusted price is just for evaluation purposes only, or no?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's nice if if you know that the overall cost of doing business with them is going to be lower. It's good to be able to evaluate that, but no, it's not going to adjust the actual pricing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so that's one scenario. So I can go in and put in some more scenarios. So I can say, okay, system, show me who you're going to award it to based on the lowest price. So in this case, it's the same suppliers, but I can save this scenario as well. And then I can even come up with my own scenario. So I can say, you know what? I don't care what these standard scenarios say. I've got this other process that I've built outside of this tool, and I'm going to award everything to David Gee. So what I can do is go in and check off all the line items I want to award to David Gee. Go to scenario award actions, and I can say, you know what? Just award it all to David Gee, and I can save that one. Okay, so now I've got a bunch of scenarios saved. I can always go in and look at those scenarios if I wanted to. I can load my saved scenarios. So I can say, okay, show me those different scenarios. I can load them up, and that'll show me who it's going to award to. I can click on scenario breakdown, and this is going to show me which line items are awarded to which suppliers. Click on saving scenario. So if I put in historic pricing and stuff like that, I can look at all that information. I can look at the panel questionnaire details, and that's going to show me the panel rating scores that the supplier received. But ultimately, once I'm done with all this, I can go ahead and finalize an award. And at this point, I can go to scenario breakdown if I wanted to, and I can create a contract with the supplier. So I can click create contract, and I'm not going to go through this entire process, but you can select the type of contract you need to create with them, and click next and go through that. This is not a step that you have to do, so if it's a purchase that's not going to result in a contract, you can skip that, or you can do that. And then once I've done that, if we go to tools and approvals, you'll notice it's still sitting with me in this buyer review step. Once I'm done, and I've selected the award, I can go to a workflow approvals or workflow actions and click approve. And if we don't have this procurement step, it's going to skip over this and go to this hold for post review. Or if it does go here, it can have somebody go in and look at this award, and this person can decide if this is appropriate or not, and they could potentially change it. But we're going to go ahead and approve it through as well. Sorry, John. And in this hold for post review step, this is designed to allow you to get the contract authored while it's in this step. So the thing about this system is once the award gets to this award to supplier, it can't be changed. You can't go back in and select a different supplier. So if negotiations fall through when you're trying to sign a contract with the supplier, you don't want it to get all the way here. So that's why we've designed this hold for post review for you to get that contract negotiated and signed. And if it does fall through, you can still change the awarded supplier here. So that's the idea behind this step in the workflow. So don't approve it past this until you have your contract signed if you are going to have a signed contract. That makes sense to everybody?
Yep, that's a great idea.
Great. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. Oh, before I approve it, also under award notifications, you can go ahead and post up award attachments if you want to. So you can click add an attachment, and you can attach a document.
Chris, is that for our notice of intent to award?
Yes.
Because that wasn't on there before, so that must be a newer addition.
I think I just kind of didn't go through it fully,
Oh,
so
okay.
apologies
Okay.
there.
Oh no, that's nice to have. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go ahead and post up a document, and when you're ready, you can publish it. And that would be like your notice of intent to award. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. I'm going to go ahead and find your public site URL. All right, so here's your test environment's public site URL. So if we take a look at our closed sourcing events, and we look at our, let's see, got one too many laptop demos. Got to stop doing laptop demos. Let's see here, where did it go? Laptop purchase for East Bay, that was the event name. Here it is. I may need to just refresh this. In a minute here, you'll be able to see, here's an example of one. You can see the award documents. So if you wanted to post up a notice of intent to award, these would be like the award documents that people would be able to download. So that's how you can publish those. And then once you have fully approved the event, so we'll go ahead and approve it. Let's just say we got the contract signed and we got past the waiting period, the protest waiting period. We'll approve that, and in a minute it's going to change from under evaluation to awarded. And now if we go to award notifications, we can send out the award notifications. So here's the awarded supplier email. We can preview and send. And this is the message that would go out to the supplier. Just keep note here that the system will automatically notify the suppliers of who participated and who was awarded anything in the event. If you want to take that content out, we'll need to just adjust the system emails. So this is very important. I want to make sure everyone's listening, because private procurement organizations absolutely hate this. They don't want to notify anybody about who was awarded or who even participated in the event. Public procurement seems to like this, but there's like a limit, right? So this truly will notify, these users of everybody who participated in the sourcing event and then everybody who was awarded the sourcing event. I can take this out, but it's just important for us to know if you would want to notify them about that or not. Does everyone understand that?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
We can just, we can change. Yeah, and we can change the email, as long as we can change the email before it goes out.
Yes. So two things. One, you can change it before it goes out right now. Two, I can change the template so it doesn't even appear in the first place. So if you guys would never tell people who else participated in the event, I can just take this out of the template and it won't even be ever here for you to even have to remove.
I think it should come out because we only care about who won. If they want to know who the losers were, they have to contact us.
Right,
Gotcha.
I agree. In our intent to award letters, we never put in there who responded, just who won. So I agree with Mary.
But we do notify all bidders.
All bidders.
We do.
Yeah.
Right. Once it's published, it goes up there, notify all bidders, but we don't put all of their names in this award letter.
Right.
Yeah.
The notice of intent usually satisfies the announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the notice of intent only needs to be sent to the participating bidders. It doesn't need to be
It doesn't need to be
publicly. No.
It does need to be posted publicly.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Remember the guidance that came out last year?
Well,
I'll send it back out again to everyone.
okay.
Everyone signed it.
It's the old fiscal debate all over again.
Yeah. No, we got it cleared by OGC. We sent out a notice to everybody. I'll send it out again just to remind everybody.
Okay. It looks like Maria said yes to notify. Maria, do you want it left in? Send it out, even the losers, Maria? Or the notice of intent?
Sorry, no, not the losers, just the ones that participated. And I know what David's talking about, but I still send it out to all participants.
Yes, it should be sent to all participants because that sets off the period where the protest period.
Okay.
So good news here is we can have standard templates, but we can have additional templates. So we can have templates for each campus, and we can have templates where you would notify more or less people. So something to work on. And
yeah, I think we need to take this up on our first CPR call or whatever.
yeah,
That's next week, right? The CPR call is next week?
I think so, in the next week or so.
Okay.
I personally like something that auto-generates, one less thing for us to
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
Yeah, totally.
yeah. So it will definitely allow you to quickly send these award notifications. Unfortunately, it's not going to auto-generate this attachment, the notice of intent to award attachment.
I don't think we need that, but I'll review the policy change from last year.
Okay, sounds good.
For public works, it's something different, but for goods and services, we don't. But that's a business process thing. We'll take that up.
Sounds good. All right, everybody, that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much. This is great.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question. For small business and DVBE, how is that factored? Maybe I missed it when I was watching, but is it based on like the supplier, and then the supplier would get that preference, and then the system would generate the preference in the points or the award and lower their amount?
Yeah, so you could ask that as a question in the event, and you could automatically reduce their cost or give them points if they said that they were a small business. So would that be done typically in a panel questionnaire, or would you just automatically give them those points? There's two ways to do it. You can do it in a panel questionnaire where you ask the panelists to rate, and you could just tell them, you know, for DVBE, give them a 5 if they are, give them a, you know, a 0 or a 1 if they're not, and we'll give them those panel questionnaire points one way or another. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is in those auto scoring and cost analysis questions, you can automatically give them either points or, you know, reduce their cost based on that.
It would be typically done with the settings. We don't ask the panels to get involved with that. It's usually the purchasing end of it. So it sounds like it would probably go where we ask the question about payment terms and we gave them a discount. I think it looks like that's where it would live from the very beginning.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, you can definitely do that. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
could I share my
that was a
screen?
good question. That was a good question, whoever asked that, because yes, we need to always put
Yeah.
those in our calculations.
I want to show everybody something. This is a notification that went out last year, July. I gotta grab it. Are you seeing the memo? July 2019, policy clarification that notice of intent to award does not need to be publicly posted. Just need to notify all participating bidders for goods and services. And there's a policy change that was signed by Arun. So we can send this out again and we can post it. Now for public works, it's a little different, but for goods and services, it's not required. I don't know if anybody remembers this. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
And this is Maria from Dominguez. Can we go back to the small business and DVB question? Because I struggled with this one during testing. And I tried both methods, the asking them a question and assigning points, but it doesn't work. And I did it through the panel questionnaire, and it doesn't work either because the points that they're allocated is based on the total number of points that the vendor gets after. So the points get applied after the technical scores come in from the committee. So we can't add it as a valuation in the total number of points because at that point, the committee doesn't know the total number of points. So I was actually going to bring this up in our next CPR meeting because I entered an example, a test example of an actual RFP, and I cannot figure it out. I cannot make it happen in either area. So just FYI, that'll be one of my topics to bring up in the next meeting.
All right.
Yeah. Do you remember which event number that was? So I can just take a look.
Well,
Or the name.
I don't remember the number. Yeah. But we'll test it out because I need, I got all the way to the point of sending out the bid for responses, and I sent it to David and to Mary. So I do want to test it out through the whole process, but when I asked them a question and I allocated a percentage, it doesn't work because it takes the percentage from like the total cost that they propose, and that's not the way that points are applied.
That's correct. This is Dale Clack. It's based on the low bidder.
Yeah, so we'll test it out, and then I think we should just bring it back to everybody once we run through those two scenarios.
Okay.
David, do you have a formula? Does Jagger have a formula to calculate those?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. We'll have to take it up and run the scenarios and see what we can do.
Because it's based on a formula.
Yeah, and if it was say low dollar, they have a capped amount of like 50. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 50,000. They can't go. The preference stops at that point. Is one, when you're asking suppliers in the supplier file that you guys have, is there a place for them to be a small business or DVBE? Two, is there a way to conditionally format the system to do the calculations for us so then we're not all making mistakes?
Right.
How do we do it now?
Making mistakes. No.
Okay. So the only reason I asked that is because if it's not possible and it's something that, maybe in the future on a future roadmap, probably not likely for a while that Jagger is willing to do, we may have to continue to do it the way we're doing it. But let's explore. Let's explore. Yeah, let's explore to see if there's a way we can do it without it being clunky. If not, then we'll have to build some business process around it.
Hey, David, this is Dale. This is Dale Clack again. I was just going to say, now as part of the phase 3 implementation, and with the supplier management program, we're going to be able to identify prime smalls and DVBEs. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
Now we also have a module called second tier reporting that will allow, and we haven't talked about this a lot, but it is in part of our license, that will allow our primes to go in and report on the second tier DVBE, small business, et cetera, that they used. And we'll get functionality out of that. That's in scope for phase 3 as well. Just not one of the big ones, but it is part of our package.
That's good to know, David, because as part of the 810D and the 810P reporting that we're required to do, that will help.
Yeah, we do have those licenses, and matter of fact, I was just talking to Kurt this morning about Jagger. I had requested that Jagger let RiseNow know that they can activate them at least on the admin side, so I can see them, just so that we don't forget that we have them, so that when we get to phase 3, we can implement them. So we are aware of it, and it is available. It's just, well, it's not available yet. It's part of our package, and we'll be implementing that in phase 3. And someone else was, I think, asking a question at the same time as Dale. Is that question still out there?
It was Mary, of course.
Oh, hey, Mary. What's up?
Well, I think in one of our conversations on one of these meetings that I think we talked about how to calculate the small business DVBE percentages. And I think at that time we were saying we'd have to do it outside the tool.
So okay, we can still talk about it again just to make sure. I think we need to start documenting some of these decisions so we don't keep chasing our tail and saying, did we talk about that or we didn't talk about it?
Well, I see a lot of changes. Every time I come in, there's been enhancements, right? So I was thinking maybe there was an enhancement.
Yeah, and I think we need to start keeping a log of what we've changed too, so we know what we've done and we can communicate that out to everybody so they know what's new.
Yeah, and additionally, Mary, I think that, part of that conversation was the CPRs for sourcing having dialogue, and now we've got a bigger, broader group.
That's true. That's true.
This is Maria from Dominguez. I have a question on the bidders conference. Did I miss it, or is there a section where you can put the bidders conference? Because in my testing and when I was doing the test, I didn't see an option for that.
You can put that kind of in your description, but there's not a specific place in the tool to put in the bidders conference.
I thought there was.
Oh no, really? Okay.
That would be a nice added feature.
It's in GEP.
Um,
Yeah,
okay.
I thought maybe that's where I saw it. I thought it was in Jagger.
I thought it was in there too, and then I went back and did a test and I didn't see it, so I thought I missed something.
So we could add a custom field for that though, if you wanted to.
So you know how we have the question answer period? I think that can be copied and just change the header of the question field. Because that's really all we need, another date option.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, date's an option in the questions, so you can put that in there. Well, in the date section, you're really asking them to provide you with an answer. So your question could be, are you able to attend our bidder conference on whatever?
No. I mean, you know how we have the bid due date and then we have the question due date?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So we can do a bidders conference date, and then because there has to be a section where we put the bidders conference information, like the call-in information, the meeting location information. So just maybe for our next CPR meeting, we can discuss that.
Yeah, for some reason I thought we had it.
I want to say we did too. It was there before.
Well,
yeah,
I'm sure it's in GEP though.
It is in GEP.
Yeah.
For sure. But
Okay.
I know I saw it when we were first starting the sourcing. Maybe it just got recalled. Maybe it just got called something else. Maybe that was the question and answer. It was the bidders conference type thing.
I'll go back to the transcripts and see if I can figure out what we talked.
Okay. Where's the dates? In any event, we can walk through seeing how to do it at the next CPR meeting.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Any other questions or concerns today? Anything I went too fast through? I've been accused of doing that once or twice.
Yeah. No, this was good. The speed was good. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
And again, we'll have one more opportunity tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow?
Perfect. I think it's 9 o'clock. Yep.
Yep.
You get 7 minutes back from the 2 hours that we had scheduled.
Yeah.
Every minute counts.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. For those of you probably jumping on another meeting, we can adjourn unless there's any other questions.
I just have a special request for David and Mary. This is Maria from Dominguez. Can you please respond as a vendor to my CRM bid so that we can discuss it in our next CPR?
I thought I did, Maria. I saw it come through.
What was that?
That was a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I missed something? Is there an email or what was the inquiry? Was it?
You're a vendor. I asked you to provide a bid for a test.
Oh, you added me as a.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And then we can use that as an example to see if we can run those 2 scenarios for small business DVBE on our next CPR.
I think I said I wasn't a small business. I said no to that.
Yeah, for anybody who's added me to a bid, I haven't responded to any because I'm on conference calls from like 7:30 till like 6 p.m. I apologize. So I'll try to get you to yours, Marie.
Okay. By the next meeting is okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me know if you don't find mine.
Did you send one to me too?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I have it for Maria. She sent it on October 13th.
Yeah, if anybody adds me to a bid, just shoot me an email or a Slack message or something saying, hey, I added you, because I've been ignoring a lot of them and I apologize. Okay.
You're not going to win any fictitious events that way.
No.
Well, thank you guys. I
Okay.
appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.